On the 14th of October, 1066, a battle was fought that would forever change the course of English history. It was a clash of cultures, a collision of empires, and the day an entire kingdom was decided by the sword. On one side, an Anglo-Saxon king defending his realm with everything he had. On the other, a Norman duke, fueled by ambition and a claim to the English throne. By the end of this day, England would be under new rule. A king would fall, and a conqueror would rise. This is the story of the Battle of Hastings, the moment when England's fate was sealed. But how did these two powerful leaders come to face each other? And how did a single day of battle become one of the most decisive moments in English history? Prepare to witness the events that led to the Norman conquest of England. Chapter 1. A Kingdom in Crisis. The year is 1066, and England is facing a succession crisis. King Edward the Confessor has died without an heir, leaving the throne open to ambitious rivals. Harold Godwinson, the powerful Earl of Wessex, is crowned king, but his claim is immediately challenged by two of the most formidable figures in Europe, William, Duke of Normandy, and Harald Hardrada, the King of Norway. Harold Godwinson wasn't just facing a foreign threat. His own brother Tostig had allied with the Norwegian king, hoping to claim power for himself. In September of 1066, Harold fought off this northern invasion at the bloody Battle of Stamford Bridge, where Harald Hardrada and Tostig were both killed. But this victory came at a cost. Even as Harold celebrated his hard-fought victory in the north, news arrived that William had landed in the south. With his army weary and stretched thin, Harold was forced to march his troops over 200 miles in just a few days to confront this new threat. Chapter 2. William's Ambition. William, Duke of Normandy, had been preparing for this moment for years. He claimed that Edward the Confessor had promised him the English throne, and that Harold had sworn an oath to support his claim. When Harold took the crown for himself, William saw it as a betrayal and an opportunity. On the 28th of September, 1066, William landed his forces at Pevensey. With an army of 7,000 to 8,000 men, including infantry, archers, and cavalry, William quickly established a stronghold. He knew that Harold would have to come to him, and he made sure he was ready. William's army was a mix of Normans, Bretons, and Frenchmen, all hardened warriors trained in the art of war. His strategy was clear. He would force Harold to fight on ground of his choosing and use the strength of his cavalry and archers to break the English defenses. Chapter 3. The battle begins. Harold reached the battlefield near Hastings on the 13th of October, setting up his forces at the top of Senlac Hill. His army was composed mainly of infantry, including his elite housecarls who fought with large two-handed axes, and the Fyrd, local militia called upon to defend the kingdom. The key to Harold's strategy was the shield wall, a defensive formation where soldiers stood shoulder to shoulder, locking their shields to create an impenetrable barrier. It was a tactic that had served the Anglo-Saxons well in previous battles, and Harold was confident that it would hold against the Norman assault. The battle began early on the morning of October 14th. William's archers opened fire, but the steep slope made it difficult for the arrows to penetrate the shield wall. Next, the Norman infantry advanced, but they too struggled to break through the English line. Chapter 4. The Norman Tactics. For hours, the English held their ground, repelling wave after wave of Norman attacks. But William had a trick up his sleeve. He ordered his cavalry to feign retreat, luring parts of the English army down the hill. The ruse worked. As sections of the English army broke formation to pursue the fleeing Normans, William's cavalry turned and attacked, cutting down the exposed English troops. The once strong shield wall began to weaken. At one point, a rumor spread that William had been killed, causing panic among the Normans. But William, ever the leader, removed his helmet and rode through the lines, showing his men that he was very much alive. This act of bravery reinvigorated his troops and turned the tide of the battle. Chapter 5. The Death of a King. As the afternoon wore on, the battle reached its climax. The English forces, exhausted from hours of fighting and weakened by the Norman tactics, began to falter. It was then, near the end of the day, that the decisive moment came. According to legend, Harold was struck in the eye by an arrow, though some sources suggest he was killed by a Norman knight. Regardless of how it happened, Harold's death marked the end of the battle. With their king dead, the English resistance crumbled, and the Normans pressed their advantage. By dusk, the battle was over. Harold's army had been defeated, and William stood victorious. The road to the English throne was now open to the Duke of Normandy. Chapter 6. Aftermath. The day after the battle, Harold's body was identified and reportedly refused burial by William. Some accounts say his body was thrown into the sea, while others claim it was secretly buried at Waltham Abbey. Whatever the truth, one thing was clear: England had a new ruler. On Christmas Day, 1066, William was crowned King of England in Westminster Abbey, but his conquest was far from over. Over the next few years, William would face rebellions and resistance, but his victory at Hastings marked the beginning of a new era for England. The Battle of Hastings wasn't just a military victory, it was the dawn of the Norman era. Castles rose across the land, the language and culture began to shift, and the Anglo-Saxon world was transformed forever. Chapter 7. The Legacy of Hastings. The Battle of Hastings was more than just the end of a war. It was the beginning of a transformation that would shape England for centuries to come. The Norman conquest brought with it changes in governance, architecture, language, and law. The feudal system was introduced, and the old Anglo-Saxon elite was replaced by Norman lords. Today, the story of the Battle of Hastings is immortalized in the Bayeux Tapestry, a vivid and detailed account of the events leading to William's triumph. This 70-meter-long masterpiece offers a glimpse into the medieval world, reminding us of the day that England's fate was sealed on the battlefield. The Battle of Hastings wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a clash of worlds. The old Anglo-Saxon England was swept away, replaced by Norman rule and a new vision of what the kingdom could be. The legacy of that day still echoes through history, reminding us that a single moment can change the course of an entire nation. This was the Battle of Hastings. Like, subscribe, and share for more epic stories from history.